Ever have a book completely destroy you? Like full-on ugly crying at 2 a.m., chucking your Kindle across the room, screaming, "Why?" and then immediately begged your friends to read it too? Yeah, welcome to Onyx Storm. Rebecca Yaros didn't just write a fantasy romance. She wrote emotional warfare disguised as fiction, featuring dragons, heartbreak, and enough romantic tension to ruin your life. Trust me, you're about to enjoy every messed up second of it. Let's be real, Violet and Xaden are emotional terrorism wrapped up in a fantasy romance packaging. And I mean that in the absolute best way. Their relationship is peak enemies to lovers angst, featuring approximately 1 billion misunderstandings per chapter, since communication is clearly for losers. Imagine Damon and Elena from the Vampire Diaries, but with dragons, deadly battles, and somehow even more brooding. Every time Xaden dramatically calls Violet love instead of violence, my heart does gymnastics, and I instantly forget every red flag ever raised. Speaking of red flags, miscommunication anyone? This book elevates miscommunication to an Olympic sport. You know the drill. One character walks in at the exact wrong moment, overhears half a sentence, and decides it's clearly time to spiral into an existential crisis rather than just, ask a follow-up question. But would we even recognize a healthy conversation if it slapped us in the face? Absolutely not. We're here for the angst. We signed up willingly, and Yaros delivers suffering by the barrel load. But don't worry, it's not all brooding gazes and tragic misunderstandings. Yaros provides banter so sharp it could fillet a dragon. Violet and Xaden's interactions are snarky, spicy, and frickin' hilarious, often all at once. You'll be giggling like an idiot mid-scene, only to immediately get emotionally sucker-punched 3 lines later. It's emotional whiplash in literary form, yet we can't stop ourselves from turning the page faster and faster, screaming, "Hurt me again!" at fictional people who can't hear us. Now, let's talk tension. If tension were currency, Violet and Xaden could single-handedly fund a small nation. Every look, every accidental touch, every tortured confession practically leaps off the page, smacks you across the face, and leaves you begging for more. Yaros manages to string readers along, dangling payoff just close enough to keep you utterly addicted, yet far enough away to keep your sanity hanging by a thread. And we love every excruciating second of it. Romance scenes? Buckle up, Buttercup. Yaros doesn't hold back, and neither do Violet and Xaden. The spicy scenes are intense, steamy, and occasionally hilariously awkward, in the most relatable way possible. Have you ever laughed so hard at a romance scene that your coffee comes out your nose? Yeah, well, welcome to my club. Some of these moments are so over the top that you'll find yourself screenshotting pages just to send them to your friends with captions like, "Can you believe she actually wrote this?" and then rereading it 5 more times immediately afterwards. Shh, your secret's safe with me. The truth is, despite the jokes, sarcasm, and endless teasing, Violet and Xaden's chemistry genuinely sizzles. Yaros crafts their bond with enough sincerity and vulnerability that no matter how absurd things occasionally get, you fully buy into their relationship. They're emotionally raw, messy, and flawed enough to feel painfully real, even if they're also riding dragons and casually saving the world. It's why readers scream about them, create fan art of them, and why Book Talk is littered with tear-soaked reaction videos from grown adults having meltdowns about fictional heartbreak. Bottom line, Violet and Xaden aren't merely romantic leads. They're emotional warfare packaged as attractive young adults who seriously need therapy. But we wouldn't change a thing. Their carnival of suffering and satisfaction keeps us coming back, masochistically hoping Yaros will finally give them a break, secretly praying she never does. Admit it, we're here for the torment, and Onyx Storm delivers beautifully, cruelly, and addictively every single time. Alright, that was just the tip of the emotional iceberg. If you think Violet and Xaden are relentless, brace yourself because the dragons in this world are about to amplify every high and low. If you've never read the Empyrean series, first of all, how dare you? Secondly, fine, here's the quick catch-up. Dragons in this series aren't just mounts or pets, they're giant, sarcastic, telepathically bonded therapists who excel at tough love and occasional threats of incineration. Everyone who's already emotionally invested in this series knows exactly the kind of trouble Yaros brings whenever dragons become the emotional focus. And Onyx Storm delivers that trouble in buckets. Here's the problem. Yaros didn't just stick with mildly entertaining dragon companions. She went straight for our emotional jugular. She decided that Violet and Xaden's tortured romance wasn't causing enough trauma, so naturally she doubled down on Violet's dragon bond. Guys, the emotional attachment levels here are outrageous. I didn't sign up for crying uncontrollably at 3 a.m. dragon drama, yet here we are. Yaros weaponized dragons against my fragile emotional state, and I walked straight into her trap with open arms. Without diving into details, let's just say that Yaros knows exactly how to twist the knife when it comes to dragon relationships. Ever cried over a fictional animal companion? Yeah, Yaros sees your pain and raises you about 50 emotional gut punches. At one point, I genuinely considered invoicing Yaros for emotional damages because my therapist doesn't deserve to deal with this secondhand trauma. Still, it's not all relentless emotional devastation. Just mostly. The banter between Violet and her dragons remains one of the highlights of this series. Their dialogue is sharper, funnier, and far more brutally honest than anything else on these pages. There is even the added bonus that they can roast your enemies literally, which just makes them the ultimate besties. Wistful sigh. These dragons are almost too good at reading people. Taryn and Dara come out with the kind of dead-on observations that make you stop and reevaluate your entire life. They don't tiptoe around feelings. They call things out exactly as they are, and somehow they're always right. It's weirdly humbling. When a dragon delivers better emotional clarity than most people I know, you start wondering who really deserves the talking stick in your next crisis. If you teared up watching Toothless and How to Train Your Dragon, or lost it during Drogon scenes in Game of Thrones, brace yourself, because Violet's bond with her dragon sets new records for emotional devastation. Yaros has perfected emotional turbulence. You're laughing one moment, then reaching desperately for tissues the next. By the end of this book, you'll start to believe she genuinely enjoys collecting reader tears. Violet's bond with her dragons might wreck you, but let's be honest, you wouldn't give it up for anything. Yaros builds these connections with so much honesty and sharp humor that every emotional blow lands exactly where it hurts. And we let it. You laugh with them, cry for them, and instinctively try to protect them, even though they could incinerate you mid-sneeze. Yaros knew what she was doing. She took our feelings, lit them on fire, and somehow made us thank her for it. We grumble, we spiral, and then we line up for more. That's the kind of damage we live for. So yes, the dragons will make you question your life choices. Now, imagine trying to figure out where you actually are. That's when the world building hits you like a sack of bricks. If you're looking for a neatly organized map and a political system that makes perfect sense, you're in the wrong book. Onyx Storm doesn't hand you a guide. It throws you straight into the chaos. Dragons, magical storms, ancient relics, jungle temples, and royal power struggles layered with emotional sabotage. It's jam-packed, messy as heck, and totally addictive. By now, Yaros has dropped any pretense of easing the reader in. The War College setup of Fourth Wing feels like a warm-up. Violet is crossing oceans, landing on storm-choked islands, and stepping into palaces where no one seems especially thrilled to see her. She's chasing ancient relics, negotiating with monarchs, and dodging betrayal in between moments of near-death. One minute, she's decoding prophecy. The next, she's watching a king casually suggest war over breakfast. If you've ever attempted the Silmarillion without backup notes, or tried to mentally track every Lannister marriage in Game of Thrones, this will feel familiar. Onyx Storm doesn't pause to walk you through the lore. New lands, terms, and magical mechanics drop mid-conversation, usually during a crisis. You probably won't remember how all the seals or ward stones function, but you'll understand it matters, because someone's definitely about to die if it goes wrong. This kind of disorientation actually works. One time, I picked up The Silent Blade by R.A. Salvatore thinking it was the first book of a new series, only to find out I jumped in at book 11. Onyx Storm doesn't do that. You're not confused because you started in the wrong place. You're confused because Rebecca Yaros is chucking a dozen new kingdoms at your head while the floor is collapsing. The magic system widens fast. There's deeper lore around the Venin, Wardstones, and Divine Relics. Some scenes read like magic theory class taught mid-battle. If you want to keep track of everything, you'll need a corkboard and some string, and the deranged expression on your face will complete the look. Still, it works. The emotional tension keeps everything grounded. You don't need to memorize how magic channels through the seals, you just need to know Violet might not survive it. And yes, the dragons. There are more of them, and they're not background characters. These dragons have opinions, old grudges, and absolutely no patience for human mistakes. Think Wings of Fire, specifically the Night Wings, if they were battle-hardened, hilariously blunt, and fully prepared to lecture you while saving your life. They don't hold your hand. They'll call you out, roast your decisions, and still have your back when the world's ending. They land every scene they're in. You don't need perfect recall. You just need snacks, a functioning heart, and a willingness to feel overwhelmed. Yaros built a world that's too big to tame, and that's exactly what makes it work. When a dragon starts ranting about ancient grudges in the middle of a thunderstorm, you're not flipping back to check who's who. You're leaning in and loving every flippin' second of it. Now, surviving a world this massive takes more than grit. It takes a person who's constantly running on fumes. Enter Violet, whose own exhaustion might be the most relatable thing you read today. Waiter, more coffee, please. Let's talk about Violet Sorrengail beyond the drama of dragons and cliffhangers. She's not some indestructible superwoman who never hits a wall. In fact, I spent most of Onyx Storm wondering if she'd ever get a decent night's sleep, or a hot meal without half of it tossed aside while she chased the next crisis. Violet's exhaustion is a full-blown subplot that makes her feel painfully real. Her leadership cracks under relentless pressure. She wrestles with doubt, guilt, and the constant question, am I doing enough? Am I making things worse? #relate. Early on, Violet shoulders responsibility like it's a badge of honor. She believes she has to solve every problem or watch people she cares about get hurt. But the book shows how that mindset backfires. By the time Violet reaches the ice-clad fortress, her voice is hoarse from yelling orders and pleading for cooperation. She's physically drained. Every step and every sword swing come with a microcosm of pain. When she glances at her reflection and notices the hollow look in her eyes, you don't think, wow, fictional heroine. You think, dang, she's barely holding it together. That moment isn't buried under epic monologues. It's a flicker, a single sentence about her shaking hands, or an angry tear she's trying not to let fall. That's enough to anchor her in reality. Meanwhile, the secondary characters around her aren't just set pieces. Take Talon, whose loyalty to Violet is fierce but tangled in fear. Talon has her own emotional tipping point. She's torn between wanting to follow orders and wanting to protect Violet, even if it means lying. Those little lies build up until you realize Talon is as trapped as Violet. Her strain comes through in curt replies and the hesitation before she commits to action. Xaden's arc deserves its own mention. He's ostensibly the stoic dragon rider, but Yaros peels away layers to reveal a man who's crumbling under the weight of expectation and love for Violet. He masks his panic behind a mask of control, his fixation on strategic plan, his short instructions, but you catch the cracks showing when he mutters something under his breath or lets a single stray tear fall when no one is watching. It wasn't a grand soliloquy that gave it away. It was the beat of a dropped sword handle, an unfinished thought. Those moments convinced me Xaden wasn't invulnerable. He was just as human as Violet, flawed, scared, and messy. Even the dragons have moments of vulnerability. They're massive, fire-breathing beasts, but each show signs of wear. Endarna, Violet's second dragon, is whip-smart but haunted by a past loss. When Endarna flinches at a certain ritual or hesitates before a flight, you feel the weight of survivor's guilt. You realize these dragons live under stakes as high as any humans. It's a reminder that exhaustion isn't exclusive to humans in this world. What this adds up to is a cast of characters who are never on all the time. They break, they fail, they question. Those cracks are where I rooted hardest for them. It's not enough that they're battling an external nemesis, they're also waging wars inside their own heads. And watching them stumble forward, bruised and half-broken, felt more satisfying than any triumphant moment where everything clicks. It's exactly why Onyx Storm feels like an emotional marathon instead of a sprint. Because these characters don't just fight dragons or villains. They fight themselves, moment by moment, until you're too invested not to keep reading. Violet and everyone around her is already teetering on the edge, juggling guilt, exhaustion, and half-broken promises. Now watch what happens when outright betrayal crashes the party. By the midpoint of Onyx Storm, trust becomes a scarce commodity. Violet's inner circle is a masterclass in secrecy. Everyone's playing their own game, and Violet's left trying to read the rules without a handbook. It's like a group project where half the team has their own agenda, and you're just hoping the final presentation doesn't implode. Yaros doesn't just sprinkle in conflict, she serves it up buffet style. Personal relationships are strained, leadership dynamics are on the brink, and the looming threat of the venom adds a generous helping of dread. Violet's squad operates under immense pressure, with key members withholding information, not out of malice, mind you, but a misguided form of protection. It's the kind of environment where every conversation feels like a potential landmine. Then comes the ending. Oh, the ending. Spoiler alert. Violet wakes up at Riorson House disoriented, missing 12 hours of memory, and sporting a new accessory, a wedding ring. Surprise! A note from Xaden reads, "Don't look for me, it's yours now." Imogen, ever the enigma, confirms she wiped Violet's memory at her request. It's the kind of plot twist that makes you question if you accidentally skipped a chapter. This isn't just a cliffhanger, it's a narrative freefall. You're left piecing together what happened, why it happened, and what it means for the future. The ambiguity isn't just deliberate, it's a challenge, daring you to connect the dots with only half the picture. In the aftermath, you're not just questioning the characters' choices, you're questioning your own life decisions. Like, why did I start this series? Why can't I stop thinking about it? And most importantly, when is the next book coming out? Because I need answers, closure, and possibly therapy. By the time I slammed that cover shut, it felt like I'd been on every emotional ride imaginable, and I wasn't even mad. Onyx Storm grabbed me, shook me until my thoughts rumbled, and then let me catch my breath just long enough to realize I already missed it. That relentless tension, volatile alliances, and dragons who'd put most therapists to shame combined into a perfect storm I didn't even know I needed. I laughed, I cried, and I thought about drafting up an invoice for emotional damages. If you need that kind of upheaval, a novel that clings to your brain and doesn't let go, Onyx Storm is exactly the fix. Once you're done, you might find yourself reaching for something like A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas for its blend of romantic agony and brittle stakes, or even revisiting Fourth Wing to see where Violet's journey began. Be warned, both of those can obliterate you just as thoroughly. If you survive this one, you're almost ready. May your heart survive the fallout, and good luck! You'll need it.